All right, so the second two are going to be a little trickier because this was actually some of the stuff I was going to try to teach. I guess it would be this Friday. It's kind of like the whole lesson, like the whole purpose is these two problems, but we'll give it a shot. So, the first thing we need to know is this thing called an oxidization state. And all an oxidization state is the charge of any element. All right. So if we look at this chromium right here, it has an oxidization state of +3, right? We can tell because there's a +3. We look at this copper, it has an oxidization state of you guessed it, a +1 because there's just a little positive there. This chromium would have a state of +2. That's right, because it just has a little 2 there. This one would have a state of +2 again. Simple enough, right? So that's all oxidization states are. So we know that. Now the next thing we need to know is what it means to be oxidized. This is different from an oxidization state. Now all it means to be oxidized is that a number went up from the left side to the right side. So if we look at copper, for example, we started with a +1, and then we go to the right side, it has a +2. So we say that this copper has been oxidized because it went up in charge. All right? If it goes up in charge from the left to the right, that means it has been oxidized. Now, the other term we need to know is called reduced. Now, if you know what oxidized is, you can pretty much guess what reduced is. Reduced just means the charge goes down from left to right. So if we look at chromium, we see it started with a +3, and then it ended on the right side with a +2. So we say chromium has been reduced because it went down in charge. So we have oxidized, which means went up in charge, and we have reduced, which means went down in charge. All right, simple enough. Now, the tricky part about this is there's terms for the things that have been oxidized and the things that have been reduced. We call the element that has been oxidized the reducing agent. I know it's tricky because they switched them, and it's like you would think the oxidized one would be called the oxidizing agent, but it's actually the reducing agent. They just had to make it tricky like that. So the element that has been oxidized is the reducing agent. So that means we look at it and we say, oh, well, we know that copper plus, not copper 2 plus, because that's already on the right side, just regular copper plus, or if it just asks for the element, just copper. Copper is the reducing agent. Why? Because it's been oxidized, like we see. Now, if the oxidized one is the reducing agent, then the one that's reduced is, of course, the oxidizing agent. Again, it's really stupid that they named them like this because it would be easier to keep straight if they weren't in the reverse, but unfortunately they are. So if we look at this question, we see that, well, the chromium was the one that was reduced. So the chromium +3, not the chromium +2, because this is the one on the right. This one wasn't reduced, only this one, because it shrunk, you see? So we see the chromium +3 was the oxidizing agent because it was reduced. All right, so we got that part.